recording. There we go. And with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Michael Funk from the Expanded Learning Division.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this day 2 of the Spring Academy. Here in Sacramento, we have a sunny morning. It's been the first sunny morning in a bit of time, and I think that's probably the case in many parts of California. So thank you for taking time to be here. I want to just thank the Expanded Learning Division staff that are here, the system of support for expanded learning from county offices, the California After School Network, ASAP Connect. During the course of the day today, we're going to be talking with what is maybe one of the biggest challenges and biggest opportunities that we've had in expanded learning, and that is the integration of transitional kindergarten and kindergarten students into our work. It has been certainly a theme throughout my 3+ decades of being in this ecosystem, in this work of expanded learning, that those people who are working with the younger or the smalls or I can't remember the jargon that's being used, but and expanded learning have often been pitted against each other and been seen as competitive. And yet many of you in your day-to-day work are responsible for both and have great expertise in both and have been able to see how vital the connection is. And it's funny in education and so many systems how we have these silos or buckets, and all these kids go in this bucket, and then somehow they get a birthday and we pour them out of this bucket and put them into this bucket. And it's one system. It's a human system, and it's a system of supporting it's our babies, our kids. And how do we get through the details and the rules? The rules just keep tripping people up, and we've been so rule bound for good reasons, for the safety of kids. So the rules are important. But I just want to say the vision is that we are providing care for families that don't have to experience the feeling like they're jumping from one bureaucracy to the next. Where the vision is that parents and kids will feel like there's humans that are supporting me every year, and every year I get older, they're continuing to support me. We have some excellent presenters today who know how to walk that walk and talk that talk and live that vision of a seamless, loving support for kids that understands what's necessary to keep them safe and keep them appropriately supported, and to support our staff in doing so. So thank you for coming today. If somebody hasn't told you today, thank you for the work that you do. Sometimes there's a perception that these people that work at the state have the important jobs, but listen, for those of you that tuned in today to listen to this, to get better, to learn more, thank you for your work. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your life. And you're making a difference and changing lives every day. And the system is built on your foundation, your time. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Melissa.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for day 2 of our 2023 Spring ELO-P Academy. I'm just going to briefly go over a few details for today's session. In a moment, we will transition into our interactive session on ELO-P and UPK-TK integration. We'll then transition into regional breakout spaces. So we invite you all to stay, connect, and share promising practices and engage in a dialogue with folks who are from your region. And then our regional rooms will actually close our Zoom for today at 11:30. And just a few reminders, if you are engaging in social media platforms, we ask that you use our tag CAELOP, and it's actually ELO program in your social media accounts. It would be great to track all of your comments and whatnot. Also, hot off the press, spring ELO-P office hours are available. They are available on the CAN website. We'll add the link in the chat in a moment. And so encouraging you all to attend office hours and ask those questions, right, that you have about ELO-P and how to serve your community. We also are encouraging folks to stay connected. This is where you'll find a lot of updates and how to stay connected with resources, ELO-P resources, etc. And so there are different opportunities here to stay connected. We'll add our bit.ly in the chat, so that way you have all of that information. And also one last reminder, our Power of Us survey is closing March 31st. So again, we encourage you to scan the QR code and share the survey with folks in your community, so that way we can increase the California responses to the Power of Us workforce survey. All right, and also one last thing, we encourage folks to engage in the chat. We will be highlighting and lifting some of the content that is mentioned in the presentation that we'll be receiving in just a moment. Please note that if you are asking questions in the chat, we will do our best to respond to those questions. However, there are some that we just might not be able to get to, but we will be reading through the chat after our session is over and doing our best to send out that information and connect folks to resources to help guide the questions in the chat. And so without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce Brittany Mabe from San Diego County Office of Ed, Liza Flowers from the San Diego County Office of Ed, and Tom McFadden from Los Angeles County Office of Education. We'll go ahead and transition to you folks, and thanks again for being here with us.
CAN team, are you able? I'm showing the first slide and then I just moved to the next slide. All right, we're moving forward.
All clear. Thank you, Brittany.
Sorry about it. So anyhow, Tom McFadden, Expanded Learning Program Consultant with the LA County Office of Education. You two want to take it away and then we'll keep going.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. Hi, my name is Liza Flowers. I'm the coordinator for expanded learning at the San Diego County Office of Education.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany Mabe. I'm the director for expanded learning and community engagement at the San Diego County Office. We are thrilled to be with you this morning. Thanks, Tom, for getting us going. And you are absolutely right with the acronyms. So hopefully we can break down some of those confusing points for you today. We're going to start off with just a little bit of setting the context and introduction for the topic today. And then we'd like to share, Liza and I, really the work that we've been doing at the San Diego County Office of Education and our learning journey towards integration of these programs. And then Tom will talk about his process up in LA County, and then we'll wrap up with a panel discussion on some of the FAQs around TK and best practices that we've seen with integrating TK students. So to get started, I wanted to put this in front of us this morning because we saw this come up just yesterday in the presentation. And as Michael alluded to earlier, there's a lot going on, a lot of amazing things happening in California schools. And these really come from our superintendent, Tony Thurman's initiatives to transform California schools. So if you're joining us today, we know you're typically or most likely joining us from an expanded learning program. And I love how Jen calls it a quilt, that really we think about all the funding sources being braided together to create an expanded learning program. And that's the quilt. But now I'm picturing that quilt on a bed, and there's other pieces of a bed, and that might include pillows or the frame and maybe a UPK or community schools or all those other pieces. So we need the quilt on the bed, but we also need a lot of other pieces to make up that greater item. And so one of those pieces is universal pre-kindergarten. Also, universal meals is another one of the initiatives. Community schools, professional learning for educators, anti-bias education, and mental health programs are all a piece of or pieces of the overall framework for transforming California schools. So with that context and knowing that, we also wanted to spend a couple minutes just defining what is UPK, knowing that, as Tom said, there's so many acronyms. You may have heard this, or maybe you've not heard this before, because we did see some people in the chat yesterday that were like, hey, I'm just brand new to ELO-P. So you may not have heard of what UPK is. And so we want to just explain that first and how it relates to TK and kindergarten, and then we'll continue to move forward. So UPK stands for Universal Pre-Kindergarten, and it's an umbrella term, and it captures CSPP, another acronym, which stands for California State Preschool Program, TK, Transitional Kindergarten, as well as Head Start, district and local community-based preschool programs, early learning services for students with disabilities, private pay preschool, and expanded learning options to support access to a full day of services. So again, UPK is like this big wide umbrella that includes all these little pieces. TK is one of them, and so is expanded learning. Of course, participation in universal pre-kindergarten is optional in the state of California. TK is the only option in that broader framework or in the umbrella that's universally available and free of cost for all 4-year-old children in California. And that's set to occur by the 25-26 school year, where all 4-year-old students will have access to TK. Right now, the windows for birthdays are expanding, and each year there's a greater phase out for 4-year-olds to have access to TK. But again, by year 25-26, all 4-year-olds will have access to transitional kindergarten. So here along within this slide, we again wanted to call out, here we are, here is expanded learning. Expanded learning is directly called out within universal pre-kindergarten because it is a piece of a support to students and families that are in this age range. So when we think about that, we know a lot has to go on to develop systems that serve students and families. I'm going back a lot to what Michael said as he kicked us off this morning, that ultimately we want to see an aligned system so that students have access to consistent support and programs from preschool all the way to high school. But really, it takes intentional support and collaboration to make that happen. So at the San Diego County Office of Education, when these initiatives got started last year in the 21-22 school year, we started looking at, if you look at this as a pathway or footprints, we started with connection and figuring out what's already happening in our county office, who can we connect with? And we happen to connect with our county office P3 team. I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. And then we started to really dig into the learning. What do we need to know in the expanded learning field about universal pre-kindergarten, about TK, about developmentally appropriate practices? What did we need to do to build our capacity so that we could best serve students in expanded learning? From there, we've continued to work on building coherence across our system that trickles down to the LEAs that are served through San Diego County so that they receive support and consistent messaging across all of these initiatives, and then continue to develop resources and targeted support that really hones in on the needs that we've seen in San Diego County in these areas. So going back, I had laid out the 4 areas here. We started with connection, then learning, building coherence, and development. So I'm going to talk first a little bit about that connection, really like step 1. And so if you are on day 1 of the job or just getting started, this is where we'd also encourage you to get started with. It's connection. We'd ask you to explore the partnerships that are available to you. And a question that we needed to ask ourselves was, what support systems are already in place? What's happening in your district around universal pre-kindergarten? What's happening in your county office to support UPK? What's happening in your charter for universal pre-kindergarten? Who are you partnering with? Then also there's universal transitional kindergarten. How has your LEA built that out? Where are you out at with the phase-in process of bringing more 4-year-olds onto your campus? Similarly, what are you seeing within just TK and kindergarten overall? It's likely that you have increased positions, whether you're at a district or a charter, to support TK and kindergarten. So what's happening there? How are these teams building out their systems? Likewise, there's also an initiative that has been stated by CDE called the P3 alignment, and that's preschool to 3rd grade alignment. And again, it's looking at that seamless pathway. So what work is happening in your organization around P3? Early education, California State Preschool Program. Learning all of these partnerships is going to be foundational for you as you're thinking about serving 4-year-olds in your expanded learning program. You have to know what else is out there and what supports are in place so that you can lock arms and move forward in the work together. And then it's asking them, these other teams, where are they at in their journeys towards providing this support? And if you are not talking, it goes back again to what Michael said, we don't want to develop silos. We want to develop integrated systems. So there's got to be some pieces put in place for you at your district, at your school site, at your charter, to really look at collaboration across so that you're not just planning ELO-P and somebody else is planning how to roll out UTK, but you can talk about those pieces together so that they are connected and integrated. From there, for us, the next step as we started to get connected was we really, as a team, needed to dig into universal pre-kindergarten with our expanded learning lens. So we have a lot of expertise in what strong, high quality expanded learning looks like, but we needed to build our knowledge of what are the expectations for universal pre-kindergarten and what is expanded learning's role in that. And so a process that our team went through last June actually was we took the UPK planning template, which is a document published by CDE. It's a document that LEAs are encouraged to work through because they will be taking that information and completing required data entry around UPK for their LEA. But this template walks through what universal pre-kindergarten is and how to plan for it within your district and charter. And so within this template, you can see it's very small here, but there are highlights. There's like a teal blue, you can see a green, another teal blue. We actually went through this whole template. It's like maybe 20 or 30 pages, but every time we found those words, expanded learning, ACES is also called in there, after school education and safety program. We highlighted those so that we could call attention to that and then talk through what does this mean for expanded learning. So I'm going to click over here for a moment to switch my screen. Somebody just hop off mute if you're not able to see that I've switched. But one of the things that we did, and we'll make this available to you as well, was we, again, through digging into that UPK template with our expanded learning lens, was we walked through a process of looking at the components in the template and asking ourselves, what's something new I'm learning? What am I wondering? And how does this apply to us? And on the left side of this template, there are the specific sections within the UPK planning template that call out expanded learning. So for example, on page 3, again on page 3, on page 8, on page 10, on all of those pages of that UPK planning template, there were explicit references to expanded learning. And so we talked about how does this apply to us and how do we support it? I'm going to move back over here to the slide deck, and I'm going to pass it over to Liza to continue to talk about how we have developed coherence within our system. Liza, please let me know if you're not able to see the screen.
Brittany, I can see the screen. Thank you very much. So as Brittany mentioned earlier, I mean, there's a lot of many different initiatives across the state, right? Such as ELO-P and UPK. And so we know that with all their different requirements, there are some places of connection and intersection. And Brittany just showcased what we did to really dig into UPK through an expanded learning lens. And so it was vital for our different teams, our P3 team and our expanded learning, to learn from each other and make sure that we were sharing information that was consistent and coherent. And so see the bullets on the slide there. There's different ways that we are sharing our own updates for each of our expertise in ELO-P and UPK. And we did that through our strategic planning for P3 efforts. We have an LCAP newsletter where we're sharing what's happening in ELO-P within that LCAP newsletter, and then vice versa. We have the UPK information that's shared in our expanded learning newsletter. So you'll really see that there's an integration of each of our work. ELO-P is integrated with and shared within the UPK community, and then vice versa. And I'll say that we're always in constant connection with each other, whether that's through emails or check-in meetings. We many times will get questions relevant to UPK that we are not necessarily the experts in. So we really lean on each other for answering questions. And then vice versa, they also reach out to us whenever they're receiving questions in terms of ELO-P. So we've really created, I would say, like a comprehensive team that's inclusive of not just us here in expanded learning, but with our P3 team at the San Diego County Office of Ed. So now that we've had the coherence amongst the internal team, it's about how are we developing the field? And so it's been an ongoing journey, as you all know, to develop the field's knowledge on ELO-P, and that's why you all are here, right? And especially in relationship with UPK. And we understand how overwhelming it can be to have an LEA have to start several new initiatives and programs at once. And so we're always trying to get into places and spaces with target audience that are similar. We're seeing that we're finding the same audience members in our ELO-P as what we have in our P3 and LCAP. And so in as many meetings as we can share information around ELO-P, we've done that. And then vice versa, we've invited our UPK team and also LCAP to come on into expanded learning so they can share their information and how that's connected to expanded learning. And so we continue to provide targeted support to our expanded learning programs, and just know that you're not alone in this, and there is a team out there to support you, including the system of support for expanded learning.
Thank you, Lisa and Brittany. If you can, perfect way to go. Thank you, Brittany. Can everybody give a virtual round of applause to Lisa and Brittany for doing an amazing job? So virtual round of applause in the airwaves. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go over our journey here with the Los Angeles County Office of Education in terms of walking through and walking with UPK and ELO-P. You know, Michael started off the meeting by saying, you know, we need to walk the walk and talk the talk, and we have these analogies of footprints and journey, and it's all very aligned in that way. And one of the things I learned as a prior to my work at LA County Office of Education was director of expanded learning programs and our early childhood programs at a district level. And I found that working with the 4 or 5-year-old group, they fall down a lot. And so when we walk the walk and we talk the talk in this work, we're going to fall down too. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, well, if you fall down, it's time to get up and just make sure you're falling forward. So that's the lens in which we're going through this work. And one other thing before I get started on kind of the meat and potatoes of our LACO journey here is, you know, you don't get ELO-P without UPK, and you don't get UPK without ELO-P. They are together in these initiatives that Brittany mentioned at the front end of the presentation. So we'll go over that as well. Our journey in LACO started and continues to develop, and the journey is ongoing through a couple of different things. One was calibration. We felt was very important, calibrating, districts and LEAs with the County Office of Education units that could help with this work. Similar to the work that's being done in San Diego County, we needed to reach across divisions to partner with the people that are doing the UPK work and the work that we're doing on the expanded learning side. So being in touch and calibrating regional and statewide work groups, which we're a part of, is really important because the journey is ongoing and no one has all the right answers. So this implementation of both UPK and ELO-P is definitely a work in progress. Coherence, collaboration with ELO-P and UPK leaders is really vitally important, especially in the field as the work is ongoing and being implemented at a LEA and district level. What is working, what needs to be changed, what support needs to happen for successful implementation. So working at the local, county, and state levels to move ELO-P and UPK implementation forward and make sure that it's in coherence with the mandates of both of those programs. And we're still learning. Learning is ongoing. And one of the ways that we started learning was by dissecting and intersecting the ELO-P program and UPK program plans with stakeholders at the LEA level and seeing what each LEA is in need of and in support with those two important pieces of planning and guidance. And then, as was mentioned, Liza mentioned this, that connecting and creating relationships that can help move the work forward. So working with our colleagues to deepen relationships, inform the work, working on the ECE or the early childhood education side, the UPK side, along with the expanded learning side, helps this work move forward. Next slide, please, Brittany. Thank you. So calibration and coherence at 3 different levels: locally, county, and statewide. Locally, we leverage experience, in particular, my experience as a preschool and expanded learning director, having one foot in both of the plans was helpful for this work in the UPK plan and the ELO-P program plan to help the train leave the station, which is the analogy I would always use. So ELO-P train leaving the station simultaneously with the UPK train leaving the station. And I found out that we needed some other people on that train, some of the stakeholders at the district level to help move that work forward. So dissecting and mapping the plans together helped move that train along in terms of implementation. Identifying, and this is really a key part, is identifying stakeholders at the district office administration level to embark on the journey. So whether it's the HR person or the business services person or the curriculum instruction person at a local district level and at a county level to help both of these plans move forward through implementation. Plugging into resources that are available, communities practice locally with ECE groups was something that a lot of folks did here in LA County to move the work forward. At the county level, the County Office of Education, in particular, Los Angeles County, who I was plugging into, was a great source for me for systems thinking. And in fact, then I'll get to this slide in a second, but that was really key for me to conceptualize how to move the work forward that's never been done before in terms of serving TKK in both types of environments. Using County Office of Education Expanded Learning TA and on the ECE side TA to help facilitate implementation, active participation, being an avid participant of professional development that's being offered, and leading and developing work groups along the way to again inform the work as it's being created for implementation. And then at the state level, there are ELO-P and UPK resources and participation in the work groups. There's several work groups that are happening and have been developed over the last several months and year and a half or so. ELO-P in the Early Education Subcommittee, that's an expanded learning work group. at the state level, aligning funding subcommittees, again, expanded learning work group, and the constellation work group, which is a UPK work group. So all those work groups and the people involved in those are moving the work forward in different ways to help, again, with the calibration, the coherence piece, so that LEAs can successfully implement both ELO-P and UPK initiatives. Next slide. So one of the things that was instrumental for me is just to conceptualize this thinking in terms of, you know, serving TK and kindergarten age students. We know that we have to serve them in the ELO-P, and we know that they were in the UPK side. But for me, adding TK and K into the mix really brought it together as the central piece to serving both of these programs, ELO-P and UPK. The crossover is really right at serving transitional kindergarten and kindergarten students. So the LA County Office of Education was key in terms of systems thinking for this. I mean, it's a fancy version of a Venn diagram with ELO-P on one side and UPK on the other side, and serving TKK in the middle of both of those initiatives. So wrapping our head around that was important for implementation. And as was mentioned, both ELO-P and UPK are part of a bigger system, an umbrella system of initiatives that Brittany mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. And there will continue to be calibration between these systems. So whether it's expanded learning and UPK, obviously that's why we're here today, to learn more about that. But there's also universal meals, professional and community schools is an initiative that we will be diving deeper into. Mental health support, anti-bias education. So again, wrapping those initiatives under the umbrella and moving that work forward through different initiatives is what we are working on at the moment. We'll continue to work on, and we will fall forward as we work on this. So our team really wants to do three things when it comes to working with our LEAs and our grantees in the county. One is to learn, listen, and prepare. Those are the big three things. Learning from the standpoint of having our team dialogues, SSEL learning opportunities, and participation in work groups. We are not shy about being on or participating in work groups to move the work forward. It's really great to see a lot of you at several of these different type of opportunities. We do a lot of listening to the grantee conversations, because that's where the work is happening in real time, right? So getting their perspective and helping them through some support systems is really important for us, and it's important for them too, to have somebody that they can lean into at a county level. Work group dialogue, cross division units. We've made some inroads, especially with our Head Start Early Learning unit here in LA County, to have a presence there and have input with them as they have input with us. Since you don't get ELO-P without UPK, you don't get UPK without ELO-P, it makes sense to have both of those stakeholders at the table. And then taking time to review in earnest both the ELO-P and the UPK program plans, resources, and tools. And so those are all things that are ongoing as the journey continues. Next slide, please. So our next step is to develop and align our resources and targeted support. I know that I'm involved with a regional early childhood education group, and we're meeting in developing tools and targeted support based on field feedback from the field. Some of the work groups that we belong to and are working with, like I just mentioned, the Region 11 Expanded Learning ECE work group. We belong to and have presence on the LA County Office of Education's Head Start Early Learning work group, ELO-P and the Early Education work group from CDE, Expanded Learning. And as I mentioned, a statewide UPK Constellation work group. So lots of different moving pieces, but again, the collaboration is really important as we move that work forward. And then finally, boosting engagement through expanded learning technical assistance. As we get better as a technical assistance unit, the field will get better with us. And so we're really in tune with that as well, because we want to do the best job possible for our LEAs and our grantees. Next slide. So I think we're going to move into a review of some of the more pertinent FAQs from ELO-P that have some bearing on serving TKK. And Brittany is going to serve as a little bit of a modified moderator as we do this, and then Liza and I will act as the panel, and we'll go through these questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. And we hope that that this is helpful for you all in terms of really, as you get started with all these initiatives, the systems piece and the thinking through all of the systems, that's foundational. And then there's also the boots on the ground piece. Like, what does it actually look like to work in these after school programs with a 4-year-old student? And so we're going to hit on some of those pieces here. But the way we're going to start here is once you have the slide deck, and you could easily just Google them right now yourself, but we have linked all of the CDE FAQs on Expanded Learning Opportunities Program to the slide deck here. And we've pulled out, as Tom said, 4 that we think really tie closely to transitional kindergarten. And we're going to talk through those and then a couple of other things for you here. So Liza, I'm going to start with you. And if I'm getting started with ELO-P and I am enrolling students, or I'm trying to enroll students and make sure that I'm enrolling all the right grade levels, and early learning has reached out to me and they're wondering if they need to be enrolling their TK students, what could you tell me in regards to FAQ4, for example, about what does it mean to offer and provide access to the expanded learning program for students?
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. That's a really good question. And there are different requirements dependent on, number one, the year, and we'll talk about this year for 22-23 school year. There is an offer and access requirement. For this 22-23 school year, the offer is to at least all unduplicated pupils in classroom-based instructional programs in transitional kindergarten and kindergarten through 6th grade inclusive. And so you need to provide at least 50% of enrolled unduplicated pupils access. Okay, so that's for this school year for 22-23. I recommend going in and reading FAQ number 4, which will also provide more information on the upcoming requirements where there's a change for 23-24.
Thanks, Liza. Well, Tom, can you build upon that a little bit and just help people understand, like, what if I'm already serving my TK students through 6th grade, which is what Liza said is the requirement? Can I use those funds for other grade levels, middle school, high school?
Yeah, so thank you, Brittany. The answer to that is definitely yes for the school year 23-24, as long as programs have met the TKK through 6th grade requirement, you can expand your service to other grades or expand your hours of service beyond that, as long as those requirements have been met first by the TKK group. So most definitely yes, but just make sure you meet the TKK requirements first.
Awesome, thanks, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So Liza, let's say that I have been running an after-school program in my district for quite some time, and we've currently been enrolling our students from kindergarten to 6th grade in the program. Is it a requirement of ELO-P that we include TK, or is that an optional offering?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your questions, Brittany. TK is included in the requirement. TK is not optional, and it is a requirement because TK is operated as a program within kindergarten. And so also these students have been included in the entitlement calculation. So you are required to support your TK students in ELO-P.
Thanks, Liza. And when I think, and by the way, everyone, that it was FAQ number 9. So if you're following along, that was number 9. We're going to jump down to number 16 though. So when we talk about serving our students and we think about our pupil to staff ratio, Tom, what are those staffing requirements for the ELO-P program, and specifically when serving TK or kinder students?
Yeah, so the ratio is 20 students to 1 adult, except for serving TKK students. If you're having a TKK group, for example, the ratio is 10 students to 1 adult. If you have a mixed group, let's say there's 3 kindergarten kids, 1 TK kid, and the rest are, 3rd graders, 4th graders, etc., then that ratio goes down to 1 to 10. So mixed groups and TKK only groups are 1 to 10. Otherwise, the ratio is 20 to 1.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Liza, I want to go back to something that I know you mentioned earlier on your slides. Really, this was thinking about the targeted support for districts and charters right now, really at that district and charter leadership level, something to help them think about alignment between what they're doing in ELO-P, what they're doing in the UPK planning template, and then also with LCAP. Did you want to share any more about that piece?
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. As we mentioned earlier, I mean, there are actually many connections and intersections between the initiatives that we have, right? And so what we have done and what I would recommend is actually crosswalk the requirements of the LCAP, the ELO-P, and the UPK. And by doing that, and we have done that at the San Diego County Office of Education, and we could include the link here, but essentially you'll see where those intersections lie, right? And when we say start, start there, have those conversations by connecting with those others within your organization, to lean on each other for each other's expertise. Create that crosswalk so you can see, or use the tool that we have. I think somebody had linked it there for us. So we use a crosswalk because essentially that'll help support, like, what do we all need to do, and where are those places where we really have a commonality and a connection within our work. And you'll see a lot of that across LCAP, ELO-P, and UPK.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I want to ask you both this next question. If you could give one piece of advice to the expanded learning field related to universal pre-kindergarten, universal transitional kindergarten, or kindergarten, what would it be? I'll get us started and say that I think just to even get started with this, you have to be talking about what types of support you're already providing to your staff, those working boots on the ground with students. What support are you already providing them on how to work and provide developmentally appropriate practices with students? Because already we know our staff have been working with kindergarten through 6th grade. So how are we building their capacity to work with kindergarten, or working with a kindergarten is very different than working with a 5th grader. So think about what you're already doing to support your staff in these areas. And then you've got to take a little bit of a step back and think, all right, now our age groups are getting even younger. What are we going to do to support our staff as they're now working with 4-year-olds? I know Liza will be able to share one of the amazing opportunities that we have in San Diego County related to that. But with this question, what advice would you give to the field, Tom?
So the advice I would give to the field, well, one is I already said it, like, if you fall down, it's okay to get up. That's one thing. And then beyond that, I think I would start at this point with making sure, whether it's on the expanded learning side and or the UPK side, is to look at both plans, both the UPK plan and the ELO-P plan that the LEA and or the district has completed or is in process with. And from those plans and seeing where the intersections are, then you can move forward with the implementation and identifying stakeholders and creating connections and really conceptualizing for your system at that level, who are the important people to be collaborating with to move that plan forward.
That's great advice. Thanks, Tom.
Mhm.
Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, total agreement with Tom. I think really making those connections are so important and so vital, especially in leaning on each other for support around each other's expertise. In addition to that, start small, chunk things out. It gets so overwhelming to seeing like the big scope of everything at once for everything that you have to do. So my recommendation is little bit-sized pieces at a time, and hopefully that will help with the overwhelming feeling that we all get when we have so much to do on our plates.
Awesome. Thank you both. Liza, one of the ways that I know that we've been thinking about little bits of stepping forward is in that partnering with, that we've mentioned so many times here, collaborating with others who are already doing the work. We had found that we really have some amazing colleagues that have a lot to share around working with 4-year-olds. So can you just talk for a little bit about one of the things that we have planned in San Diego County in terms of support for expanded learning staff with these practices?
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. I'll say for myself, it was overwhelming having to consider, like, how do we support the field in supporting these little ones, right? Our younger youth. And we had to lean on our experts within the San Diego County Office of Education and ask for their support. And what we're doing now is they're working with us. They've actually created a series for setting the foundation for supporting our younger youth. So how do we support these younger youth that's with more developmentally appropriate activities, and so I don't have to think about where that's going to come from. I know exactly where our San Diego County Office of Education, Early Learning, UPK P3 team is supporting us with that work. And then vice versa. If they needed support around ELO-P, we are willing to jump in and support those that they directly work with.
Thanks. It's perfect. Yeah, I think that's really, we have to be thinking about that professional development at the school site level for the staff working with these students. So we're really excited about what we are putting together to help staff have instructional strategies they can use tomorrow with 4-year-olds, because we know it is very different working with multiple age ranges. So with that, I would just ask our colleagues at CAN or from CDE, were there any particular FAQs or questions, I should say, in the chat that would be helpful for Liza or Tom or myself to field at this time? I'm not able to see the chat while I'm screen sharing.
Hey, Brittany, this is Heather. I think this is coming up a couple times in the chat box, but there's questions about summer, right? And so I know we've talked about this a lot in office hours, but incoming students, like, when do they count? Like, when are they officially TK students? When do you officially have to offer programming? So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk.
That has come, I know that's come up quite a bit. So correct me though if I don't want to answer wrong for the fields, but my understanding is it's a local decision for the district or charter based on when enrollment really is for transitional kindergarten.
That is correct. Yes, thanks, Brittany. That's the one I definitely saw a lot, and just highlighting, folks have commented a few times, right? Local decision. And those are things that are great to have conversations with your regional teams to hear how other people are focused on that. I think that was one of the big questions. A lot of the smaller questions we were able to answer in the chat box, but if anybody else from CAN or CDE sees something we should elevate, let me know.
Well, thank you, Heather. I'll go ahead and move to our last slide. It's just our contact information. We are not experts in this field. I always like to tell everybody we can be lead learners, but we're going to learn alongside of you, and we're privileged to play that role and to support you. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will hand it right back over to Heather and your team.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Brittany.
Brittany.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Liza. And I'm actually going to pass it right back over to Melissa.
Thanks, Heather. If the team can help me, please remove spotlight of our presenters. But again, one final virtual applause for our wonderful presenters today. Thank you again for being here. We're going to move on to the second part of our workshop for today. But before we do that, a few reminders. Again, please make it a point to connect with your system of support for expanded learning folks. We will add our bit.ly link to connect with the SSEL in the chat, and you can just see all of the regions here that are represented in California. And if you stick around, you will have time to connect with our system of support in our regional breakouts. Again, we live and breathe CQI, continuous quality improvement. So this QR code and link that we'll paste in the chat is the overall feedback form for our 4-day academy. So if you're participating in the other session 3 and 4 next Tuesday and Wednesday, I just recommend completing it at that time. But if you're not, you're welcome to give us your feedback now on how we can improve our ELO-P convenings offered to the field. And then again, I added this just again to highlight, please stay connected with CAN. You can join our various listservs that we have, and so you can receive all of the resources that are shared with ELO-P. And I know it was added in the chat. The recording and resources from today will be uploaded to our website. And also there's a YouTube playlist that will have all of the recordings for the entire academy once day 4 is done. All right, so we are going to transition now into our regional breakouts, which is a great time to connect and meet folks in your region, engage in dialogue, share promising practices, etc. If you're unfamiliar with what region your county is in, you can look at this slide here, and it will go over what rooms will be open and what regions will be in what rooms. So pretty much room 1 is region 1, room 2, region 2, room 3 is a special room where we will have regions 3 and 6 partnered together. So if you're in a county from region 3 or region 6, you'll join room 3. And then for regions 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, you'll just go to the corresponding room. So we'll open up those breakout rooms in a moment. If you need support in how to find or how to connect to the breakout rooms, I'll pull up that slide again in a moment, but just for folks that need support. You can join the breakout room by going to the very bottom of your screen to join breakouts once I open them, and you'll just hover over the room that you would like to join. You can also use this other feature here where your name is listed as the participant. You can join a room there. If you're unable to do that or need support, you can also rename yourself in the chat and let us know what room you would like us to support in connecting you with. And then also, if that doesn't help, we will do our best to, open up the chat if anyone else needs support getting to their breakout room. So I'm going to leave this slide here for a moment. Oh, one last thing. The Zoom will close when you're in breakout sessions, and so there will be no need to come back to the main space. Thank you for participating in today's workshop of the ELO-P Spring Academy. And I will open up breakout rooms now and enjoy your time. And again, if you need support, just shout out in the chat and we'll do our best to support you. Thanks and have a great day, everyone.